Well, guys, this morning, which is I think September 20th, I am off to Rhode Island. Did some looking around, and I think I've located a good used complete gear case unit to replace my piece of junk here. I'm going to keep our fingers crossed, so I'm taking the old one here, we're loading it up in the little Dakota, and we're going to head down there and see what we can see. All right. Morning dew on the windshield. Let's head off to Rhode Island. Maybe we'll get lucky. My headliner on my truck's falling down. I hate that. Both of my Dodges, same problem. And you know, on the other Dodge, I tried using a 3M spray adhesive, and the adhesive worked, but the problem was that the adhesive sticks this to the foam that's already deteriorating behind here. So all that happens is more foam comes off and it doesn't want to stay. You know, it works, it's like a temporary fix. But my understanding is the only way to properly fix this, you can get a little bit of static cling going there, but the only way to properly fix this is to take the whole headliner out, and you know, I just haven't had time for that. All right, off to Rhode Island. Well, I've already traveled about 6 miles, so only got 40 more miles to go. 46 miles, not bad. Well worth driving distance if this ends up being a good usable case, considering he's looking to get around $100 for it. Well, guys, just left that gentleman's house about 20 minutes ago. I'm in northern Rhode Island on my way home, and there's my old case. And there is what I hope to be my salvation. Hopefully this is gonna be the answer to my problems. This is a gear case, complete lower gear case that this gentleman had. He was an OMC dealer for quite a few years. He retired and had a whole bunch of stuff in storage. So didn't have a lot of Mercury stuff, but the story on this goes that they took a motor in trade that was junk, and before they junked it, they took off whatever was good and usable, and so they took this gear case off of that motor. At some point he had it painted quite a while back, but he can't tell me whether or not he knows if they put a new water pump impeller in this or did any new seals or anything. At first glance it looks like it's in great shape. There is a little bit of oil right here that looks like it might be coming out of somewhere. I brought my old shaft so I can match up and make sure it's the right size. The only thing on the shaft that doesn't match up is this shaft has this little pin, which I think is just an alignment pin to help installing it. The question is, if my power head doesn't have a hole for this pin to go into, then can I just cut that pin off and ignore it? In other words, here's my original, okay, which has a hole in the end, almost like the pin could be in there. And there's the replacement one. Looking at the top, everything looks like it matches up perfectly. There is a pin, alignment pin on mine in this location that doesn't exist on this one, but the hole is there for the alignment pin. And then there's a second alignment pin on mine somewhere over here, right there. And actually it looks like it might still be there, but it's broken off. I don't know. The same amount and length of studs is what I've got on mine. Everything looks good there. The water slinger here is pretty roached out. Even this gasket actually looks okay. He does believe that all of the units that they were originally offering for sale at the dealership like this had been vacuum and pressure tested. So you know, that still begs the question, well, does that mean it's still, after sitting all these years, is it still going to be good? You know, quite a few questions, of course, to go with this. The other big thing is he does not know what motor this came off of, so we don't know what the gear ratio is yet. I might be able to figure that out. He says he's sure that at some point this piece of tape that's on here had all the information written on it, but through years it has just come off and faded away to nothing. All right, so this seal looks, this area here on the shaft looks really good. This actually appears to be stainless over here. So anyway, well, enough about that. It's lunchtime. Beef barn. Well, if you're ever in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, I suggest you look for the beef barn. I've been here before. When I'm in this area, I've stopped by here, and I'll tell you, they make a very delicious burger. And make sure you try their homemade potato chips. Hey guys, it's later the same evening, and I've now got the replacement gear case down here in the basement shop. I've got a towel in the jaws of the vise because it's got this nice paint job on it. The gentleman who sold me this explained to me that any of the used gear cases that they put up for sale, when they'd get a batch of them together, they'd send them over to an auto body shop that he had I guess a relationship with, and they would spray them. So that's why this has what looks like a pretty fresh paint job on it, although my understanding is that this has been sitting in a storage unit for a while. The story is that he had an OMC dealership for quite a few years and then ended up closing, and then took the inventory that was left over, or some of it that was left over. This gear case was one of the parts that was left over, in addition to a lot of new old stock parts, and filled his 2-car garage and also 3 storage units. Well, he's getting up there in years now and has decided that he needs to liquidate this stuff, so that's how I came to score this. So he can't remember the history of it though. He definitely doesn't know the gear ratio. He doesn't know what horsepower it came off of. He admits he's an OMC guy, so he doesn't know a lot about the Mercs. What I do know is that when I matched up my old case to this case, it's a perfect match. The number of splines and the size of the prop shaft appears to be correct. The length of the drive shaft is correct. The pin on the top here that I showed earlier is the only issue as far as matching that up. He does not recall whether or not they put a new impeller in there when they went through this and had it painted up. So right now, because I don't know anything about this thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the gear case and I'm going to see what comes out. If no oil comes out, well, then that's, I won't know what to make of that. He felt pretty confident that this had been pressure and vacuum tested. That they did that apparently to all of the lower units that they had for sale. And so, well, let's see what's in there. Alright, I got myself a couple of nice clean containers, so whatever's in here, I will get a really good look at it. Wow, that was tight. A little bit of water in there by the looks of it. It stinks too. Oh yeah, water. Definitely contaminated oil. It's got that gross smell. The longer I let it drain, the better the oil actually looks. That's actually not that horrible. And the reason is because any water that was in the oil would try and settle out to the bottom of the case. So the initial draining at the bottom there is going to be the worst stuff. It's going to have the most water in it. And then any water that's in the oil further up would be water that would have had to have emulsified. That is starting to look a lot better. So I think the plan is going to be, what I'm going to end up doing on this one is I'm probably going to put new oil in this case, put it on the motor, run it on the water a little bit this fall if I can, and then when I take it out for the winter, I'll drain the case again and see what the oil looks like then. If I see water infiltration then I'll know that this case has got seal issues. I think that's, you know, that's my plan anyways. That's the way I figure. All it'll cost me is you know, what it costs for the oil to do that, in theory. Alright, I think I'm gonna probably put my other container underneath there and just let it drain. Well, in preparation for putting new oil in the gear case, I went to the marina and I brought one of these original plastic washers with me, and I asked if they had a couple of new ones, and he brought me these. He said this is what they're using now. So hopefully that's going to be a good cross. It's narrower than the plastic one, and it's made out of some other type of material. He called it felt, but it's not really felt. It's more of some sort of a, I don't know what the heck it's made out of. So hopefully this will work out. And then I went to Napa and I got this generic CRC Marine Hypoid 90 lower unit gear lube. I didn't get extra fancy with the gear lube because I'm, like I said, my plan is I'm gonna be draining this back out shortly anyways. Alright, first I made sure that I got both of the plastic washers out because this one was stuck in here, and you don't want to double up on the washers. So on most of these lower gear cases, at least the older ones, you've got two holes. You've got a drain hole and what they call a vent hole up here, and when you first open the drain not much comes out, and then when you open the vent, because of the because of the action of the atmospheric pressure, when you open up the vent, that allows the oil to flow out. So anyways, when you fill these, if you just put the drain plug back in and try and fill it from the top here, what's going to happen is you're going to have oil that gets trapped in there, air that gets trapped in there, and you're going to have a hard time filling it. There's also no place as you try and pump the oil in for the air to escape. So the way you do it is you actually fill it through here. So like this is the type of oil that comes in a tube like this, and you actually just stick this nozzle in there and squirt it in, and you're supposed to fill it until oil just starts to dribble out of here, and that's supposed to be the proper level. And then of course once you get the oil in to the level you want, then you install your vent screw. So because if you just pull this out, it's going to come gushing back out. But if you install the vent screw and you pull this out, it won't, a little bit will drip out, but it won't make a major mess. So I've got my new washers installed, ready to go on my screws. So let's give this a shot. That's the full tube and nothing's coming out yet, so it's going to take more than one of these tubes to fill this case. Hopefully I can find the other tube. I only bought one tube when I was at the store because I was almost positive I had another tube of this stuff unused around here. And lo and behold, now of course I can't find it. See, hardly anything comes out when I... And I'm not going to over tighten those screws because I'm going to take them back out when I put in the second. Well, these little blue washers are junk. I went to tighten this one down really tight, and it just completely shredded, squeezed out. So I'm going to take that back out, and I'm going to put the original plastic washer back in and reuse it, which I didn't want to do, but I don't have time to go all the way out to a marina that's going to have the correct Mercury ones. So one of the other things I was wondering about on this gearbox is what the gear ratio is. And I believe that on these Tower of Power outboards that it's supposed to be a 2-to-1 ratio. But I think because they use the same gear case on some other horsepowers that there were some other ratios out there. I also think that there may have been a point where they used a 2.3-to-1 ratio on some of the Tower of the Powers. I'm going by memory here. It gets kind of foggy after you start reading enough posts. But anyways, what I can do is I can figure out what the ratio is of this. Because since this is not a completely junk outboard, I can actually turn this shaft. Now I'm making sure I only turn this clockwise. Why? Well, because right now the blades of the impeller are being kind of like pushed up against the outer wall of the housing. So if I try and reverse direction, I'll probably feel a binding, and then what I could possibly end up doing is binding up the impeller. So I don't want to do that. But what I can do is I can actually mark a point on here and rotate this shaft, mark a point on this shaft, and see how many rotations of the drive shaft it takes to make a rotation of the prop shaft. So if it takes exactly 2 turns of the drive shaft to make 1 rotation of the prop shaft, then that would be a 2-to-1 ratio. Alright, so I got this groove right here is just about lined up with the 12 o'clock point on there. Let me get to the next one. Right there looks good. So I'm going to make a mark right there. And I get this shaft is pretty much lined up with, I'll make a mark on the pump housing. And right there. Alright, and now I'll rotate this clockwise. So there's 1 full turn, which hopefully right now that mark is exactly on the bottom. That's 2 full turns, and you see my mark is just coming around. So it's 2, and let's see, if this mark ends up right on the back side, that would be 2.5-to-1. That's about right there. My mark is over here. So I think that's 2.3-to-1 or thereabouts. It's definitely not 2-to-1 ratio. Now I wonder what kind of problem that's going to cause. I wonder if that's something I could correct later down the road by changing my prop pitch. Well, so now that's got me curious about what the ratio is on my original here. So should be able to figure this out. If I keep this lined up, well, let me see, I'll just keep this little pointer right here, pointed here, and there's a little mark right there on this gear. So I'm going to put that right there. And let's see, if I go around, that's actually 1 revolution right there. That's 2 full revolutions, and I go just past here. I think this might be the same as that one. Alright, I think either I did this wrong or the ratios are way different. So I got this on this block with a pin. This socket helps take up some of the slop, so that I got a kind of a little place for this to ride on, so that I can actually rotate this and see exactly what's happening. So I'm going to scratch a mark on a tooth. Actually, that's not. Oh, let me use a Sharpie. That's better. Let's see. Oh. Mark one of these teeth.
So, if I put this on here like this, alright, so that this tooth is at 3 o'clock right now, then all I need to do is rotate this and see how many turns it takes of this to make this rotate once, and that'll give me a ratio. So, alright, so there's 1. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. See, I haven't even come to 2 full turns of the pinion gear, which would be the drive shaft, and I'm already past this point. So this ratio is actually under 2 to 1, and that ratio is over 2 to 1. That's not good. Alright, so I just checked, and a 2 to 1 gear ratio should be 14 teeth to 28 teeth, which makes sense. 2 to 1, twice as many teeth on here as here. So this is a 14 tooth pinion gear, but is this 28? I don't believe it is. So counting the black one, now this is 25 teeth. So this is a 14-25 gear set. So I'll have to check and see what that ratio is. Alright, this is a 14 tooth pinion gear, and this is a 25 tooth gear. I may have misspoke before, I forgot, but 14-25 is a 1.78 to 1 ratio, I believe. I don't know, I just looked at it on a chart that I found online. But anyways, so that's quite a different gear ratio than this new gear case that I have. I just found an interesting web page for Evinrude Tech that actually shows a method of determining gear ratio on a gear case like this when it's still on the boat. And basically it involves manually turning the flywheel and marking the prop blade so that when the prop blade is right centered underneath the this anode that goes in here. So I should be able to simulate that. So essentially what you do is you get a mark right on the top of the prop blade when it's centered underneath there. But what you want to do is you actually want to let's see if I can't get this straightened out. Okay, so it actually even talks about making sure you turn the drive shaft clockwise only, or otherwise you're going to damage the impeller. It also talks about turning this shaft a little bit to take up any normal free play that might be in there, which there's very little free play in this case. And then what it says to do is it says to actually rotate the flywheel 3 full revolutions and then see where this mark ends up in retrospect to 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, and so on. And then looking at comparing it with photographs that the guy actually has on the website. So that's kind of neat. So I'm going to do that now and double check what I believe I have here for a ratio, which is in excess of 2 to 1, somewhere around like 2.3 to 1. Let's see. It's 3 full revolutions of the crankshaft, or the flywheel if it was on top of this thing. So I'm assuming that probably the reason why he's doing it 3 times is to help take out any possible error, maybe. I'm not sure. But let's see where my mark is now. So my mark appears to be right here. Probably, I would say that is going to correspond to 4 o'clock. It's definitely after 3 and looks like it's probably about close to 4. Okay, so in that little test that gentleman chose to do with the 3 revolutions, he says that if the mark ends up at 3:30, that the ratio would be 2.25 to 1. But that's because it's an Evinrude web page. So that's for Evinrude's. Apparently Evinrude had the 2.25 to 1 ratio at some point. My problem is I believe I found the chart showing all of the ratios used by the inline 6s, and there was a 1.78 to 1, which corresponds with my original gear case. But the other ratios over 2 to 1 are 2.3 to 1 and 2.33 to 1, which is so close. I got to believe that you could, drop that 3 and kind of discount that, and it wouldn't make that much of a difference. So 2.3 to 1 is, I think, what this is, because also as I said, this is a little bit further past 3:30. It's closer to 4 o'clock. So I think this is a 2.3 or 2.33 to 1 ratio gear case. So I have no idea what that means for me, how bad that's going to be. Now I'm thinking right now, any of you guys who were potentially thinking of trying to give me advice on this are probably going to ask me what I have for a prop. So that's the original prop that was on this motor when I got it. I don't know what the pitch is on it. I'm assuming these are marked somewhere. I don't really see it. If I had to guess on the diameter, I'd say that this is probably about a 13-inch prop. Yeah, I think it's like a 13-inch prop, but I don't know what the pitch is on it. The other thing I'll say about it is, well, as you can see by looking at it, it's really beat up. So I'm certainly not married to this prop. So if I had to get a different prop to make this work right, I guess that would be okay. The question is, would there be a prop available for this that's not an arm and a leg to buy? I've gone to the flea market and seen some of these props. Saw a guy at the QVEA flea market last time I went. He had a couple of these brand new sitting on the thing, and he wanted 35 or 40 bucks a piece for them. And I was tempted to buy one, but I was thinking to myself, how the heck do I know what that's going to fit? So anyways, and now even if I took this one to compare, I'd be kind of like, well, wait a minute. I know that this is going to be, I don't even know whether or not this was the proper pitch for that gear case. Never mind this one. So I guess I'm kind of at an impasse there. I'm thinking now of just maybe getting this gear case on the boat, putting this prop on it, getting it in the water and seeing what it does. All right, guys, I found a number right here on this prop. I had to wire wheel it to get it so I could see it and read it. And it looks like it's a 4.8, then there's a space, 77342A4, I believe. Then there's another space, and then it says 15P or 15P. I'm wondering if P is for pitch. I don't know anything about outboard prop pitches and stuff like that. So, but either maybe I can look up that number and get something out of it, or maybe somebody knows right off the bat that that's what they would call a 15 pitch prop, or I don't know.